On my 30th birthday, Marcus, my incredibly influential CEO husband from a global investment firm, suddenly announced he had an emergency summit in London, canceling our island getaway that we'd booked 6 months in advance. But at 3 in the morning, a social media post from Chloe, his assistant, popped up, showing her location as Kenya. The man who usually frowned if his coffee wasn't the right temperature was now squatting on a dusty construction site, humbly apologizing on Chloe's behalf. The caption read, "Almost cost Mr. Marcus $1 billion, but he's willing to cover all my mistakes." I casually screenshotted it and sent it to the executive team chat, commenting, "Is Marcus's trip to Africa considered market expansion?" 3 minutes later, Marcus's personal phone lit up with calls. "What did you post in the executive team chat?" "It's perfectly normal for her to be inexperienced, she just graduated. Do you have to make her a laughingstock for the whole company? Besides, she's just a young woman in an unfamiliar place in Africa. My accompanying her is for the company's sake. I have nothing to say to someone as cold-blooded and heartless as you. Withdraw the message immediately. I'll compensate you when I get back." From our wedding anniversary to my birthday, his compensation was always just empty words. I smiled and turned off my phone screen. Anyway, the divorce process would be finalized next week. I didn't care for his compensation. "Ms. Grace, this luxury apartment was just renovated. Are you really willing to sell it at a reduced price?" I took the resale contract from Sarah, my assistant, and signed my name with a flourish. This was supposed to be a surprise for Marcus, but a cheating man didn't deserve it. This apartment made me see a person clearly. It's a good deal. After the paperwork was done, just as I picked up my phone, the work group chat exploded with messages. Chloe sent several wronged emojis. My social media post was just being nonsensical. "If it made Ms. Grace uncomfortable, I'll apologize right away," I scoffed. Sending cutesy emojis in a 500-person workgroup chat? Did she think an investment firm was a kindergarten playgroup? She couldn't be a pampered wife, so now she's acting like a martyr. The chat went silent for a full 3 minutes before Marcus finally spoke. "Chloe just graduated, she's still a kid. Everyone, please be more understanding." Only after the CEO's statement did the group chat become active again. "Young people, being nonsensical is normal, we all understand." "Exactly, Ms. Grace, just because her project isn't going well, she shouldn't take it out on a newcomer." Marcus rarely intervened, and I personally trained half the people in the company. But having been steeped in the muddy waters of the workplace for too long, they had also become opportunistic turncoats. Even though I still held the director position, they were all clustered around flattering Marcus's assistant. What was even more ridiculous was that group of old shareholders who, just moments before, had berated me for half an hour during a meeting. Then they turned around in the break room to praise the herbal tea Chloe brewed, claiming it was good for health. But because Marcus was the only son of a billionaire who controls half the business world, and his favored young assistant had a pleasing baby face, I was, in their eyes, nothing more than an unromantic career woman. I slammed my phone face down on the desk, not wanting to be disgusted by insignificant people anymore. But just as I started to calm down, Sarah, who had just hung up the phone, said awkwardly, "Ms. Grace, there are too many errors in the Africa project report." The client manager was so angry during the meeting, he smashed his laptop. I rubbed my temples and said, "Chloe is responsible for that project, why are you telling me?" Just then, Marcus called, his tone commanding. "You've reviewed Chloe's report, haven't you? It's her first international project, just complete the parts I've highlighted in red." "Complete?" My knuckles cracked as I gripped the phone. "Does Marcus know if this project falls through, we'll have to pay a 30% penalty? You let a freshly graduated assistant manage a $5 billion merger, and now that it's messed up, you expect me to fix it?" Marcus's voice suddenly rose. "She's just a young woman, she ran around on site in Africa for the project until her skin peeled off. Is it so hard for you to type a few words from your air-conditioned office?" The phone hung up with a snap, and I stared at his name on the screen, laughing out loud. Chloe went to Africa clearly to apologize on the company's behalf, but in his words, it became running the project? Did he think I was some blind fool? Shaking off Marcus's nonsense, I took a few days off for a road trip. As I sat by the river leisurely eating grilled fish, my screen suddenly lit up with over a dozen missed calls. Suppressing my anger, I answered, and the roar from the receiver made my eardrums ache. "Grace, you'd better not push me." I unceremoniously took a bite of my grilled fish. "What am I pushing you to do? Can't you just talk normally?" The breathing on the other end paused. "Fine, I admit I canceled on you for the getaway, but work is more important. I don't care how many things you have on your plate, the Africa report must be revised tonight. Just as I was about to refuse, a woman's whining voice came from the other end. Mr. Marcus. No getting into bed before you shower. I wanted to crush my phone, and said mockingly. Mr. Marcus, isn't it time for bed in Africa right now? Calling me specifically before you shower, aren't you worried your little girlfriend will get angry? I deliberately drew out my words. Oh, I almost forgot, only a petty and narrow-minded woman like me would get angry. Marcus's voice suddenly rose. What shower? If you're hearing things, go see a doctor. I'm in the hotel confer. In's room overseeing the project. Chloe is still revising the report at 3 in the morning. Why can't you learn from her? Marcus was about to argue further when a sweet, saccharine voice from behind him interrupted him. Mr. Marcus, the bathwater is ready. Marcus's voice instantly softened. Wait for me, I'll be there after I finish up work. With that, he lowered his voice and threatened me. Grace, I'm telling you, the Africa project must be secured. The company doesn't keep dead weight. The moment the call ended, my eyes felt dry and painful. Marcus fell in love with me when I had nothing, insisting on marrying me despite his family's objections. I once traveled with him through 7 cities to secure investments, eating cold sandwiches and revising PPTs late into the night in conference rooms. I thought that by becoming his right-hand woman, our marriage would last longer. But he repeatedly broke rules for Chloe, buying her houses and cars, and even wanted to divorce me for her. Only then did I realize he had no affection left for me, only annoyance. After driving back to the city, I switched back to WeChat for work. The work group chat had exploded, from executives to project team members, a dense cluster of red notification dots for mentions of me. The liaison for the Africa project demanded communication entirely in French. And everyone in the company proficient in French, besides me, had been taken by Marcus to Africa to act as Chloe's translator. They only remembered me when they couldn't handle the project? Too bad, I'd already written my resignation letter. Even if the company went bankrupt because of this, it had nothing to do with me. Back at the company, I walked straight to the HR office to submit my resignation. Sarah chased after me, stomping her foot in. Ms. Grace, the resignation process takes at least a week. If you secure the Africa project, you'll get a big bonus. Why throw money away? She was about to try to persuade me further, but HR knocked on the office door. Ms. Grace, we can't process your resignation. The board just held a meeting, and the decision is to fire you. 8 years of marriage, and Marcus was ruthless. Good. I had nothing left to cling to. After packing up my things from the company, I drove back to the suburban estate. I pushed open the door, and the empty living room was filled with nothing but irony. Marcus had long since moved into the apartment he bought for Chloe, even taking the housemaid with him. This villa was left by his parents, but I paid for all the renovations. The renovation of this estate was no cheaper than Chloe's apartment. To prove my capability to him, I worked myself to death, drinking with clients until I was hospitalized for stomach bleeding, yet forcing myself to act fine in front of him. I earned the money, but his heart had already flown away. After he met Chloe, to make her happy, he spent exorbitantly at an auction house. To provide her a home, he bought a luxury apartment in the city center without a second thought. Chloe often boasted that home is where the love is. Those previously hidden flirtations, now, with money and status, had become enviable gossip. I dug out my wedding ring from home. My and Marcus's names were engraved on the platinum band. It turned out this metal band had never entrapped happiness, but rather my half a lifetime trapped by a misguided love. I sent that ring, along with all the jewelry and watches Marcus had given me, to the auction house. Sarah contacted me to sign the project transfer contract, so I had to return to the company. The receptionist saw me and said with regret, Ms. Grace, I wanted to invite you to my wedding at the end of the year. I shrugged helplessly. It seemed even the receptionist knew about my resignation. As I exited the elevator, I ran into Chloe, who had just returned from Africa. Her skin was fair. She definitely hadn't gotten sunburned until her skin peeled off, as Marcus had claimed. She stuck out her tongue at me. Ms. Grace, you must have finished revising the report, right? My bonus totally depends on you. I ignored her and walked straight to my office. The new director had already arrived. When saw the transfer papers on the desk, her eyes suddenly widened. Transfer? New? Ms. Grace, you resigned? I scoffed at her exaggerated performance. The termination letter was sent to the main company group chat. Aren't you always seeking attention in the group? Chloe's smile froze, her fingers clenching her skirt hem. You don't even complete the tasks the company assigns you. What company would want someone irresponsible like you? I brushed aside my hair, uncaringly saying, that's none of your concern. I've been in this industry for 10 years and signed countless projects. Many companies would be eager to have me. But you. I stepped half a pace closer, watching her feet instinctively retreat. Without, you wouldn't even be able to get a decent internship. Chloe's eyes reddened, and the coffee in her hand tilted, spilling precariously onto her dress. Suddenly, an angry shout came from behind me. Grace, this is not your place to cause a scene. Marcus draped his jacket over Chloe, tenderly wiping her tears, while in his other hand, he carried her favorite strawberry cake. Chloe sobbed, I don't know what I did to upset Ms. Grace, she just had to belittle me so much. How long has she even been graduated? Marcus turned and roared at me. Why are you bickering with a young woman? Apologize. Chloe tugged his sleeve, lowering her head to rub at the coffee stain on her skirt. It's okay, Mr. Marcus, Ms. Grace is a veteran at the company after all, I shouldn't contradict her. I was also doing it for you, for the company. You almost knelt to the other party for the Africa project, I just couldn't bear to see you, I understand. Marcus softly comforted the woman in his arms, his face instantly darkening when he looked at me. I'll give you 3 hours. If you don't finish the report, get out. I smirked. 3 hours? 3 minutes is too long for me. I've already resigned. You can find someone else to clean up this mess. Marcus's eyes widened, veins bulging on his forehead. Resign? You're using resignation to threaten me? I looked at his hypocritical facade and found it absurd. He was the one who personally made the decision to fire me, yet now it was somehow my fault. He clenched his fist, took a few deep breaths, and said, I apologized for the cancelled getaway, and I've already bought a replacement birthday gift. Isn't that enough? Can't you separate work and life? You'll get your share of the bonus if the project succeeds. I stared at him, then suddenly laughed out loud. He actually thought I was angry because he cancelled on me? In these past 8 years, how many missed wedding anniversaries, birthday dinners, or even nights I was hospitalized for stomach bleeding, had he cancelled on me? I was tired of playing along with their charade, so I picked up my bag and left. Just as I was about to leave, 2 new interns politely greeted me. One of them stared at my necklace and suddenly exclaimed, Hey, Miss Chloe has the same necklace. I gripped my bag strap. This necklace was given to me by Marcus on our 3rd wedding anniversary. It was $1 million necklace I was reluctant to wear, yet he had held out the velvet box and sincerely told me, my wife deserves the best of everything. The intern suddenly lowered her voice. Ms. Grace, I know a bit about jewelry. Miss Chloe's one is definitely genuine, but yours seems to have the wrong color. Her companion quickly covered her mouth, and the two ran off as if fleeing. I touched the cold metal chain around my neck and suddenly laughed. His sincerity toward me was probably like this necklace, fake from the very beginning. I pulled off the necklace and threw it into the trash can. As I reached the 1st floor lobby, I ran into David, Marcus's assistant. He saw me and respectfully smiled. Ms. Grace, Ms. Chloe left her bag in the car. I'm taking it up to her. But the bag in his hand was identical to my limited edition designer bag. A thought struck me, and I took it without explanation. The scratches on the handle were exactly the same as the ones on the bag I lost 6 months ago. At the time, Marcus insisted the housemaid stole it. Now, it seemed he had given it to Chloe long ago. I pulled out my key and fiercely scratched several marks onto the bag's surface before tossing it back to David. Tell that anything she has, I've either used it or looked down on it. I pointed to my chest. But what I earned with my own ability, she can never steal. I turned and walked away after saying that. The moment I received my divorce certificate at City Hall, I smiled with relief. This terrible marriage was a humiliating dark chapter for me. As soon as I got home, I found the villa door wide open. The 2 familiar figures in the living room made me instinctively clench my fists. It was Marcus's parents, Mr. Henry and Mrs. Margaret. What's she got to be so arrogant about? She only got the director position because of Marcus. Chloe, remember, you're the one Marcus chose. Letting her revise a report for you is doing her a favor. Mrs. Margaret leisurely lifted her gaze. A man should marry a supportive wife, not an unromantic career woman who only stays in conference rooms. Mr. Henry put down his cigar and agreed with her. I think Chloe is very good. She's well behaved and has a good temper. Not like that crazy woman, throwing a tantrum downstairs and scratching a bag. If you ask me, she doesn't care if it's not her money. We were just mistaken back then. Chloe feigned a melancholic sigh. Oh, I'm not as lucky as Ms. Grace. I haven't met anyone as considerate as Mr. Marcus. Is she lucky? Mrs. Margaret scoffed, an ungrateful thing. If had met you 2 years earlier, she wouldn't have had a chance to claim his POS. If you ask me, they should divorce quickly before having kids. I think she doesn't want to have children to carry on the family name for the Vance family at all. I clenched my fists, but didn't push the door open. When started his business, his family cut him off financially. I stayed with him, and we ate cheap takeout for 3 months. He relied on me to write proposals overnight to win over difficult clients. Back then, his parents even praised my capabilities, saying the company couldn't do without me. Now that the company was listed, they couldn't even bother with civilities anymore? I should have realized long ago that a businessman's affection always follows profit. Marcus, on the sofa, remained silent, changing the subject to company matters. Why are you still talking about work at a time like this? Mrs. Margaret looked disappointed. What you need most now is a supportive wife who considers your needs, so we can have grandchildren soon. A woman like Grace, who only cares about money, if a company offered her double salary, do you think she wouldn't run off? I'm your mother. Everything I do is for your own good. Her few words belittled me to worthlessness. But she didn't know how many high-paying job offers I had given up for her son, and how many mistakes I took the fall for at work, for her son. Mrs. Margaret eagerly took Chloe's hand. What a good child Chloe is. She cleaned the house before we arrived and cooked according to our tastes. Not like her? I almost laughed out loud. The food was made by the housemaid, and the cleaning was done by the cleaning lady. Chloe just gave a couple of instructions, and the credit went to her? I couldn't stand it anymore and stepped through the door. When they saw me, the air froze for a moment. Marcus coughed a few times, frowning. Why are you making that face? You're not even calling Mom and Dad? Where's that good tea you brought back last time? Go make some tea for Mom and Dad quickly. Mrs. Marga. Rhett said sarcastically with a cold laugh. How could I bother Miss Grace? Drinking the tea you brewed might shorten my life, you know. Chloe is more thoughtful. She knows to prepare juice for us. She's truly someone who's been with Marcus for a long time. Mr. Henry sighed along. What's the big deal about revising a report? She wouldn't even do that much. I smiled, my gaze sweeping across Marcus's face. Director? You didn't tell your parents I resigned? What does your company's project have to do with me? Marcus suddenly slammed his hand on the table and stood up. You're arguing with me in front of Mom and Dad? If you make any more trouble, don't blame me if I truly fire you, regardless of our relationship. Mrs. Margaret was not to be outdone. You want to resign? You want to just give up now? Is our family's money for women like you to squander? We don't have a daughter-in-law like you. I clapped my hands with a cold laugh. All right, well said. A cheating husband, unreasonable in-laws, and a martyr-like assistant who loved to act. I pulled out the divorce certificate from my bag and slapped it onto the dining table. I've had enough of this life. Marcus stared at the divorce certificate, his fingers trembling as he repeatedly flipped it open. Divorce? When did I divorce you? I pulled a cold smile. Mr. Marcus is truly forgetful. Wasn't it Miss Chloe, your favorite assistant, whom you fully entrusted with the divorce process? His face turned pale at my words. 3 months ago, late at night, I received an order confirmation for a presidential suite. That day, Marcus had made an excuse to go on an out-of-town business trip, canceling our long-awaited dinner reservation at a Western restaurant. I rushed to the hotel, used my key card to open the door, and seeing the 2 flustered figures inside, my blood boiled. Marcus was clumsily wrapping a naked Chloe in a blanket, while he himself, wrapped in a bathrobe, angrily ordered me to get out. He openly showed special favoritism to Chloe at the company, and I endured it. He gave projects that should have been mine to Chloe, and I endured that too. But I couldn't endure watching them end up in bed together. Even without affection, shouldn't a husband married for 8 years have some bottom line? You can tell me to get out, but I'm divorcing you. My hand trembled as I clutched the key card. Marcus, wrapped in his bathrobe, merely glanced at me indifferently, and what he said next almost made me laugh through tears. Have handle it for me. She's my assistant. Days later, Chloe pushed open my office door, triumphantly waving a signed divorce agreement. See? Mr. Marcus wanted to divorce you a long time ago. He just considered marital decorum and couldn't bring himself to say it. It's better for everyone if you let go willingly. Marcus's rebuttal snapped me back from my memories. Divorce agreement? When did I sign it? Chloe flinched, startled by his suddenly cold gaze, and tears instantly welled up. You were drunk that night. You told me to prepare the documents. She nodded and shook her head, sobbing, unable to catch her breath. Mr. Marcus, I just did what you told me to. Enough. Mrs. Margaret suddenly slammed down her bowl and chopsticks. It's done and over with. Everyone knows Grace's petty intentions. She just thought my son was easy to bully, but suddenly stood up, staring intently at me. Grace, I never intended to really divorce you. I chuckled softly. 8 years of marriage, how many times have you threatened me with divorce? It took me 8 whole years to go from initial despair to numbness. Now it's as you wished, we're divorced with no more ties. Why are you regretting it now? Seeing his shifty eyes, I feigned surprise and covered my mouth. Is Marcus worried I'll take your assets? I pushed the divorce papers in front of him. The prenuptial agreement clearly states that I won't take a single penny of your assets. But the agreement also states in black and white that this estate belongs to me after the divorce. Mrs. Margaret slammed her hand on the table and stood up. Grace, have you no shame? This is our family's estate. She pointed at my nose, shouting without regard for her dignified image. I knew it. That's why you stubbornly refused to have children. You were scheming to defraud us in a sham marriage. I clenched my fists, my heart filled with immense sorrow. When insisted on marrying me instead of going through an arranged marriage, his family cut him off financially. In these past 8 years, all our expenses, and the hard-earned money for the company he founded and grew step by step, which wasn't earned by me pulling all-nighters for proposals, or drinking with clients to secure investments. What did any of that money have to do with the Vance family? Enough. Marcus cut off Mrs. Margaret, looking at me with a complex expression. Give her the house. Let's go. I leaned against the doorframe, watching Marcus pull his parents out into the yard. Mrs. Margaret, unable to bear it, his hand. Marcus, must you embarrass us in front of that woman? He ignored the fuming Mrs. Margaret, turned, and grabbed Chloe's wrist, his voice laced with anger. My talk of divorce was just said in anger. Did you follow me all this time for nothing? Chloe's eyes reddened with grievance. But Marcus clearly said he liked me, and wanted to give me a home. She sniffled. I believed it and kept hoping for our future. Why are you blaming me now? All right. Mrs. Margaret grabbed Chloe's hand, then turned and glared fiercely at Marcus. Since you like Chloe, and you're divorced now, why can't you just be with her? She patted Chloe's hand. I think Chloe would make a fine daughter-in-law. Unlike some ill-mannered and vain people who don't deserve to enter our family's door. She glanced down at her wristwatch. Your father and I have to go back to the company for a meeting. Don't be so harsh on the young woman. Talk things through properly. I watched this farce with amusement. Marcus subconsciously pushed away Chloe's approaching hand and looked at me with guilt. Grace, I didn't want to. His eyes darted away. Wait until I handle things at the company. I promise I'll give you an explanation. Can you just wait for me a little longer? I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Marcus's conflicted appearance wasn't because he couldn't bear to lose me, but because I still had value to him and the company. I had already anticipated that he wasn't easy to deal with, but I didn't expect to hear news of his and Chloe's engagement a week later. Before I had fully left the workgroup chat, Chloe's messages popped up. She was flaunting the massive diamond ring Marcus gave her in the group. Everyone must come to Mr. Marcus's and my engagement party. People in the group showered her with flattery. We can't call her Ms. Chloe anymore, we should call her Mrs. Marcus. Wishing good luck in her career and love life, this is truly a real-life CEO romance. Watching the flood of blessings, I silently exited the chat interface. They all seemed to have forgotten that a week ago, I was still the company's director, Marcus's wife of 8 years. I fiddled with the USB drive David had given me, a cold smile on my face. Marcus, as your ex-wife, how could I not prepare an engagement gift for you? When I asked someone to investigate Chloe, I hadn't expected much, but the results were a surprise. Marcus's parents accused me of being after money, but they didn't know that the innocent and kind Chloe in their eyes wasn't a graduate of some prestigious university at all. After high school, escort at a nightclub. Over the years, she had slept with countless men. Her degree was fake, and her face was expensively altered with cosmetic surgery. Even her first time with Marcus was a lie, backed by a 30,000 yuan cosmetic surgery receipt. Since personally sent me an invitation, why wouldn't I go? On the day of the engagement party, when Chloe saw me, she forced a generous smile and intimately hooked her arm through mine. Ms. Grace, Chloe, and Marcus are very happy you could come. From the audience, colleagues' undisguised mockery could be heard. Some people still think Mr. Marcus will come back. Who would want an old woman like that? She just lost her job and her husband, so let's cut her some slack. On stage, Chloe was wrapping her arms around Marcus's neck, looking up, waiting for his kiss. Suddenly, someone pointed at the background screen and exclaimed, "Look at that!" The cheers ceased abruptly, and everyone's gaze converged on the large screen. The screen continuously played intimate, entangled moments between Chloe and other men. The happy smile on Chloe's face instantly froze. She stumbled back a few steps, her heel caught on her dress, and she fell awkwardly to the ground. Chloe disregarded her messy hair, pointing at the video on the screen, her voice trembling. "This isn't real. Grace faked it. She just can't stand to see me happy." She abruptly turned and glared at me, her face flushed with agitation. I looked at her with amusement. "If you haven't done it, you naturally won't be afraid of being exposed. Miss Chloe, why are you so eager to frame me? Who's truly jealous here?" I looked at Marcus's ashen face, deliberately drawing out my words. Or perhaps, Mr. Marcus is so infatuated with Ms. Chloe that he doesn't care about these things? Chloe was about to argue when Mr. Henry and Mrs. Margaret, escorted by a group of bodyguards, entered the venue. The crowd immediately erupted into chatter. Are those the CEO and his wife of Vance? The demeanor of a billionaire is even better than on TV. No wonder Mr. Marcus is handsome. His parents' looks are top tier. I just don't get it. What did he ever see in Grace back then? Could he have been put under a spell? Marcus's parents approved of Chloe, and she believed they would be her BAC king. Chloe immediately raised her voice, throwing herself at Mrs. Margaret tearfully. "Uncle and Auntie, you must do me justice. Grace is jealous of Marcus and me, and purposely came to ruin our wedding. But how could I have come unprepared?" I met Chloe's challenging gaze and mouthed to her, "Idiot." Only then did she realize that Mrs. Margaret, who had been kind to her, now frowned, and even Mr. Henry's face had darkened. As soon as David had compiled the evidence, I had simultaneously sent the video to the Vance executive's email. Wealthy families value their reputation above all else, and what Chloe had done was completely unforgivable. Not to mention Marcus's parents, it was probably all over Vance. Mrs. Margaret suppressed her anger. "Chloe, our family cannot tolerate this kind of scandal." She gave a bodyguard a look. "Leave by yourself before the media arrives. Our family will also issue a statement canceling your engagement to Marcus." Why do even you believe her? Chloe staggered backward, tears smudging her once exquisite eye makeup. "That divorced old woman is jealous of me. I didn't do anything wrong." Mrs. Margaret flung her cosmetic surgery receipt at Chloe's face. "It's come to this, and you're still trying to argue?" Marcus's face was ashen, his eyes filled with disgust as he looked at Chloe. "Get out." Chloe shrieked, clutching the sleeve of his suit, unwilling to give up. "You said you'd marry me. How can you go back on your word?" "Marcus, I'm truly sincere about you. I don't hit women." Marcus shook off her hand and coldly ordered the bodyguards, "Take this woman away." As was being dragged towards the door by the bodyguards, he suddenly spoke, "Wait." Chloe's eyes, which had just lit up with hope, were utterly extinguished by his next words. "All properties and vehicles under your name will be reclaimed. You don't need to come to the company starting tomorrow." "Marcus!" Chloe burst into tears, her high heels scraping an ear-splitting sound across the floor. "How can you be so heartless? Right, you even kick your own wife aside. Besides money, do you have any humanity left? You're a scumbag. I hope you rot in hell." I met Marcus's gaze. His apple bobbed as if he was about to speak, but I turned and left first. With the farce over, there was no need for me to remain there and get entangled with him. The estate that the Vance family gave me after the divorce was bought in full by a buyer within a week of being listed. And I also received a high-paying job offer from abroad. Sarah laughed and teased me, "Ms. Grace, this is what they call good things coming in pairs. Leaving a rotten man means life will be smooth sailing from now on." My overseas travel documents were processed, and I was ready to embark on the next chapter of my life at any moment. Just after I saw the agent off, Marcus drove up and parked outside the estate. He looked at what used to be our home, his eyes clearly showing loss. "I thought you'd be reluctant to let go. A home you've lived in for 8 years, how can you just sell it?" I scoffed. "What is there for me to be reluctant about? Every second in this house was torment for me. Don't you think that's funny? You had a home with Chloe outside. This place stopped being your home a long time ago." I took a deep breath. "What do you want from me?" He grabbed my hand, his tone urgent. "It was my fault. I'm sorry." I frowned and shook him off. "If you're here to say those meaningless platitudes, then don't bother." He quickly pulled away from me. "No, it's not that. The company really needs you. Many projects have run into problems since you left. Especially the big deal in Africa, they specifically asked for you to be in charge." This was the first time he'd ever been so humble in front of me. "Even if you don't forgive me, I beg you to come back to the company? I'll offer you triple salary, and you can pick your position." I looked at his clenched fist and suddenly laughed out loud. "Mr. Marcus, Do you think that's necessary? Go back and let colleagues gossip about me being replaced by your assistant? Or watch you and your new lover going in and out of the office together? I scoffed at myself. I'm not that pathetic, and I don't lack your money. We're long over. Be clear-headed. You should have known that the moment you cheated. 3 days before I was due to leave the country, David, Marcus's assistant, suddenly waited for me downstairs at the hotel I was staying in. He didn't need to say anything. I already knew the mess left behind by the Africa project had finally blown up. Chloe had maliciously retaliated, leaking multiple confidential company documents to a rival firm, even involving the core technology of a partner company. Several companies had jointly filed lawsuits, and Marcus's company was facing numerous legal battles. Mr. Marcus was so angry that he got acute gastritis and was rushed to the emergency room. He barely regained some strength and wouldn't even get in for drip, rushing back to the company. David practically pleaded, Ms. Grace, the company can't do without you, and Mr. Marcus can't do without you either. I remained silent. Even if Marcus's company suffered significant losses, his billionaire parents would always back him up. Why did he need to play the victim to me? Ms. Grace, you were a couple after all. You can't just stand by and watch Mr. Marcus. After you resigned, Mr. Marcus's office still had your wedding anniversary picture together. You don't know, he stares at that picture every day, and even drinks the same brand of coffee you used to buy. Enough. I waved my hand, cutting off his exaggerated performance. A dramatic boss leading a whole cast of actors. I can video conference with the Kenya team, but don't bring up feelings again. My new company was also interested in this project, and bringing it over wouldn't hurt me. David looked relieved as if he had been granted a great pardon. Before leaving, he turned back to repeatedly confirm the time with me. I agreed to go to the company, if only to see what else Marcus could pull. As the elevator display reached the top floor, I heard the sound of glass shattering from the CEO's office. Chloe, disheveled, was kicking the sofa, scattering antidepressants from her bag all over the floor. Yes. So what if I sold the company's secrets? She furiously smashed Marcus's office. When she saw our picture together, she broke down and ripped the photo to shreds. Marcus, you forced me to do all of this. Who told you not to marry me? Do you really think I'd let you control me? Dream on. His suit was drenched in coffee, and Marcus looked nothing like his usual composed CEO self. I shouldn't have gotten rid of Grace. At least she brought profit to the company, but you, his words were cut off by Chloe's sharp laughter. Grace? Wiping her tears, she retorted, you're the one who didn't want her. It's no use regretting it now. Ha ha ha, you're rotten to the core, just like me. You should accept your fate. Slap, a fierce blow landed on Chloe's face. Chloe clutched her crooked nose. Marcus, how dare you hit me? Just as she lunged to retaliate, she was dragged away by the company's security guards. Marcus took a few gasping breaths before looking up and seeing Grace, expressionless, not far away. Grace mocked, how can Mr. Marcus be so impatient with a recent graduate? He stumbled back half a step, his wrist scraped by glass shards, leaving several bloody cuts he didn't seem to notice. Are you here to make fun of me too? Grace nodded decisively. What else? Marcus ignored the sarcasm in Grace's words and spoke, his voice hoarse. Grace, just give me one more chance. I didn't bring you to the company to argue with you. I'll make you the general manager of the Africa project, and the equity. Grace slapped away the contract he offered. No need. Mr. Marcus, you should congratulate me. Thanks to you, I don't have to waste any more of my life here. I'm heading to Northern. Marcus froze for a moment, not expecting Grace to say that. Are you really leaving? Is this to get back at me? I understand if you don't want to be near me. I can pull some strings to send you to another company. I don't trust you going abroad alone. Can you really bear to leave me? And your parents? Grace smiled, waving her hand. Mr. Marcus, you don't need to trouble yourself with any of that. My future has nothing to do with you. Mr. Marcus. David suddenly rushed over, a look of urgency on his face. Another contract issue has come up. We need to go to the branch office right now. He gave Grace a deep look, then turned and left. Grace had, after all, underestimated Chloe's madness. Just as Marcus stepped out of the office building entrance, a black car sped out of the underground parking garage. In an instant, the shouts of the crowd and David's cries mingled together. Marcus collapsed into a pool of blood, his eyes still fixed stubbornly in Grace's direction. When the security guards rushed over, Chloe was already being dragged out of the car by bodyguards. Kicking her high heels, she laughed maniacally, her face devoid of guilt, only the exhilaration of revenge. Marcus. You ruined me, so I'm dragging you to hell with me. On the way to the airport with her packed bags, Sarah looked at Grace hesitantly. Grace, the hospital results are out. Mr. Marcus is paralyzed from the waist down. This lifetime, I'm afraid. She sighed again. Given Enterprise's influence, life imprisonment would be a lenient sentence for Chloe. Grace closed her eyes wearily, and Sarah, understanding, fell silent. Grace didn't want to hear anything more about the past. Before boarding, Grace threw away her old SIM card. Below the clouds, the city that once confined Grace was receding. And at 30,000 feet, Grace's new life was just beginning. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.